Mr. Fletcher, how were you employed back in July of 2008?
With the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
What was your position with that agency?
I was a corporal, Uniform Patrol Division, Sector 2.
Does that mean you are a supervisor of some sort?
Yes.
How long had you been with the Orange County Sheriff as of July 15th of 2008?
I got hired with the Sheriff's Office in 1999.
Do you recall being one of the first individuals, if not the first, to respond to a call at 4937 Hope Spring Drive?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were you, in fact, the first individual to arrive?
Yes, I was the first person to arrive on that date.
All right. And did you arrive in the typical fashion in a patrol car and in full uniform?
Yes, I was in a marked patrol car, full uniform.
Okay. Were you alone, or were you with another officer?
I was by myself at the time of arrival.
Okay. When you arrived there, do you know what type of call you were responding to?
The initial call that was dispatched was a stolen vehicle call, is how it came through.
Okay. So when you arrived at that residence on Hope Spring, were you under the impression that this was the type of call that you would initially be handling?
From the initial information provided, it was a stolen vehicle coupled with some type of verbal altercation between the caller and their adult daughter.
Okay. So when you get to the house, what's the first thing you do?
I approached the door. I don't recall if I rang the doorbell or knocked at the front door, and it's been a while, but I'm not sure who responded, but someone did answer the front door.
Okay. Did you go into the house?
Yes, I did.
What were your actions immediately upon entry?
Made contact with the caller and began to gather information on the nature of the phone call, of why they called us.
Okay. How many people were inside the house at that point? Do you have a recollection?
Initially, there were 3 adults inside the home.
Okay. Do you remember an individual by the name of Cindy Anthony?
Yes.
Was Cindy Anthony inside the home?
Yes, she was.
Do you remember an individual by the name of George Anthony?
Yes.
Was George Anthony inside the home?
Yes, he was also in the home.
How about an individual by the name of Caylee Anthony? Was
Yes.
she inside the home?
Caylee was also inside the home.
All right. Where were these individuals upon your arrival?
I don't recall seeing Caylee immediately when I came in. I did see George and Cynthia. They were inside the residence, somewhat of the living room and off in the kitchen area as well.
All right. And do you have a recollection as to the demeanor of these individuals upon your arrival?
George didn't say too much initially. Cynthia was quite upset, really just trying to figure out what was going on and convey as much information as possible to the situation.
Had you been given information that Cindy Anthony was the caller?
I don't recall at that time.
Okay. At that point,
I think the initial information that came through, as far as on our computer screen, that she was the caller, the initial caller.
Okay. At that point, what actions do you take?
I began to just ask, why was she calling? What was the nature of the call in relation to the vehicle? She explained that situation. Later, we gathered more information on the whereabouts of her granddaughter, and her granddaughter was missing at that time.
Okay. How soon after your arrival do you speak with Caylee Anthony, if you do at all?
I spoke with her shortly after that. I can't, if I would have to guess, within 10 or 15 minutes probably.
Of your arrival?
Yes, after arrival.
Did she stay in a room other than the room that her parents were in?
In the general vicinity, initially, yes. She came out.
Okay. What did she tell you was the reason why you were there?
She didn't really say much. Asked her numerous times, different things, and she wasn't very forthcoming with anything, with any type of information initially.
He's stating an opinion.
Overruled.
Okay. Were you asking questions?
Yes.
Were you getting responses from her?
Not initially. Not initially. I was not getting anything to further the nature of the call and the concerns of her mother.
All right. You said not initially. Did there come a point where you were able to get any information from Ms.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
What information did you get?
She did convey that her daughter had been missing for a period of time, approximately about a month. She had last seen her in the custody of the nanny that she had left her with. And she had been wanting to conduct her own investigation at that point in time, and I wasn't quite clear why she didn't initially contact us and ask for our assistance.
Okay. Did other patrol deputies arrive to assist you with this call?
Yes, shortly after my arrival, Deputy Acevedo arrived at the scene to assist with the call. At that point in time, after I just got some initial information from the parties at the residence, I had contacted my sergeant at the time.
Would that be Sergeant Reginald Hosey?
Yes.
Did Sergeant Hosey arrive?
Yes, he arrived later at the scene.
Okay. At that point, since he's the sergeant, he's a one-level supervisor above you?
Correct.
Is he the individual that takes responsibility for directing the actions of the deputies on the scene?
At that point, once he arrives on scene, he takes over the scene typically and began running it.
Okay. You had indicated that Ms. Anthony said that a Zenaida Gonzalez had taken her child. Did you inquire or did you find out the last location where she said she saw this child?
At the time, she did not know the exact location by name, but she was willing and able to show us the location.
Okay. Since she was willing to do that, did you take some steps to find out this location where
Yes.
she had last seen the child?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes,
Were you involved in whatever steps were taken?
Yes.
To what extent?
I drove my marked patrol car over to the Sawgrass Apartments. Deputy Acevedo transported Casey in the vehicle and her marked patrol car to the apartment complex.
Okay. When you arrived at the complex, was any action taken there with Miss Anthony?
Deputy Acevedo had her point out the apartment of where the last known location was, of where she had dropped Caylee off.
Do you remember where that was?
I know if you would pull into the apartment complex, it was one of the first buildings and on a second floor, second story apartment.
All right. At this juncture, do you remember the apartment number?
No, I do not.
All right. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
It's page 2137. If I may have you look at that document. Tell me if you recognize it first.
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
A supplemental report produced by myself.
Was that report produced at a point closer in time to the events that we're speaking of?
It was post the events, and the indication was apartment 210.
Okay, this refreshes your recollection?
Yes,
That's the reason why you write reports?
correct.
Did you have an opportunity to contact any occupants of apartment 210?
I did go to the apartment, and from what I could view from ground level as well at the stair level, the blinds were open, and there was, from my viewpoint, I could not see any furniture inside. It appeared to be vacant. No lights were on. I knocked. There was no answer.
Okay. Did you share that information with Miss Anthony at that point?
I don't know if I had, I can't recall if I had said anything to her about that or not.
Okay. Did Ms. Anthony leave the area with Deputy Acevedo while you remained?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions of the witness, Your Honor.
Go ahead if you're going to be brief.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, maybe in another 30 seconds. You arrived and the garage door was open,
Yes,
and you saw the white Pontiac Sunfire,
I did see the Sunfire in the garage, yes.
and the trunk was open.
I believe so, yes, the trunk was open.
And you were in and out of the garage?
I wouldn't say I was in and out of the garage, no.
You'd been in the garage that evening?
I know we went through the garage one time to talk to different parties, actually to walk outside with Casey.
And you did not observe any foul odor coming from the car?
I did not spend any lengthy period of time by the vehicle.
I didn't ask how long you spent there. I asked that you did not observe any odors of any decomposition coming from that car.
No, I couldn't say that I did.
I'm sorry?
I can't say that I did.
Okay. And how many other police officers showed up that evening?
I was not at the scene the entire time, so from the time I was there, another 3 or 4 initially while I was there.
And did any of the 4 police officers who were there with the garage door open, the car and the Pontiac Sunfire in the garage with the trunk open, come to you and tell you, I smell something, some human decomposition over here?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustain.
Were you ever made aware at any time that evening that there was a car with human decomposition emanating from it?
Any knowledge would be based on hearsay.
Sustain.
I have no further questions.
Okay. May the deputy be excused.
Yes. Excuse me.
Sorry about that, Judge. Saw
Observations, correct?
things that other officers have advised you of?
No, not necessarily. If they're going, go ahead.
If you brief someone of a fact, or someone briefs you of a fact, you put that in your report, do you not?
It just dependent, because they may go ahead and report it in their supplement or their report.
My question to you, sir, is if you brief someone of a fact, or if someone briefs you of a fact, that goes in your report.
Yes,
And that would include, unless another officer is assigned to do a report, that your report is the report for that call.
no.
Okay, how does it work then?
Depending on the situation, a deputy or just dependent, someone may take the actual call, they may take the main report, and then you would provide a supplemental report to the main report itself.
And in your report, where you put facts that you received from Miss Anthony?
I attach the supplemental report.
Correct. And you put facts that you received from Miss Anthony?
If anything pertaining to the nature, it would have been included in there.
Is that a yes?
As I said, if it pertained to anything that she would have told me, it would have been in the report.
Okay. And facts from other individuals?
My observations of that, because like I said, I wasn't there the entire time. So if I didn't interact or I wasn't given the information by someone else, I wouldn't put it down.
What I'm just trying to ask you is that your report contains facts that you observe and facts that other people give you.
Would be facts that I observed.
And that you didn't observe anything that my client told you, did you?
Could you repeat that, please?
You did not observe anything, any facts that my client told you she observed.
She didn't give me any pertinent information other than what was reported.
You didn't observe Zanny the nanny.
Correct, I did not.
This is something she told you.
Correct.
Okay, so you're putting facts in your report of things people told you, right?
Of someone else, not necessarily the deputies.
Right.
Okay.
So my question to you, is there anything within the 4 corners of your report having to deal with the smell of human decomposition from the Pontiac Sunfire?
Objection to hearsay and negative impeachment. It's improper.
Sustain.
Is there anything in your report?
I
Sustain
objected, it
based
was
upon
sustained.
Sustained based upon State versus Johnson.
I have no further questions.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the time is now approximately 5 minutes past the hour of noon. We're going to be in recess until 1:30. Enjoy your lunch. Please remember all of my previous admonitions. All right, thank you, members of the Okay, both sides ready to proceed? Okay, let the record reflect that the defendant is present along with counsel for the defendant. You may be seated.
That perhaps we can address now before the jury comes in.
Yes, sir.
It's actually really a or tennis motion in limine that, and I can follow this up with something in writing if the court would like
Okay.
me to. It's my understanding that the state may seek to introduce the jail visitation videos. However, we are trying to inquire as to what portions of these videos they may seek to introduce, because certainly all statements would not be relevant. And there also may be other subsequent issues dealing with those particular videos. So rather than sit here through 5 hours or 6 hours of videos, we're not certain, or we would ask that the state proffer which portions of the videos they would seek to introduce, and that way we might be able to speed along the process as to what will be objected to and what won't be. I think just for judicial economy, that we may want to have a better grasp as to what portions of these tapes the state finds as relevant.
Ms. Birdie?
Your Honor, Mr. Wyas knows very well, because I told him this morning, it is our intent to play all portions of all videos. He has had 3 years to file a motion to redact portions of these videos, and he only mentioned to me today that he may want to object to certain things that are on there. What I asked him to do was to type out exactly what he thinks is objectionable, and I will look at it, and then we can litigate it if necessary. But we had a hearing on this, the admissibility of these videos. I believe it was in early March, and I've heard nothing since.
The state's burden to present relevant evidence. We filed our motion in limine on another legal basis. We are free to object at trial, during trial, before they present it, during the presentation. We're certainly doing this well in advance to try and move things along in a easier manner, because there are things contained in there that this court has found not to be relevant. And when we're talking about 5 hours of video, certainly my expectation is that the prosecutor will pull out relevant portions that they seek to introduce, not irrelevant portions just to see Miss Anthony in action, or her character, or things, or uncharged crimes, or things that gratuitously may be included in some of these videos.
Well, let me ask this question. Were all of these videos made available to the defense, and did the defense have an opportunity to review those videos?
Yes. With the exception of one that was recently turned over, but yes. But,
Okay.
I can't, generally speaking, yes, we've had them, and that's why I'm raising the objection.
Well, we've had numerous hearings, and if memory serves me correctly, the week before we went to Pinellas County, I offered to hear whatever motions y'all needed to have heard, and there were motion deadlines. Why were no motions filed objecting to the admissibility of those. Specifically, the order provides non-forensic scientific legal motions requiring, well, there was a discovery cutoff that all motions must be heard, I think, prior to, December 31st, 2010.
Question, Judge, and the answer to that is that in the course of defending this case, we have been faced with numerous types of issues, many of which have been litigated. We've had to prioritize those issues. The practice of our craft has been one in which we address what we think are more important issues first, and many issues come up at a later time. Many things at the initial glance we don't pick up on, and we later realize that this is something that needs to be addressed. The moment I thought there might be an issue here, I spoke with Ms. Drain-Burdick. We tried to resolve it. I realized that we were not going to have a resolution, so I'm bringing it up at this time to the court. We have not been sitting around doing nothing. We've been litigating this case tooth and nail for the last 3 years and doing the best job we can under the circumstances and the challenge and the resources that we have. I can clearly say this is not something we've sat on. It's an issue that's come up. It's one that I am aware of, and I brought it to the proper parties, and I think in a timely fashion. It's not before, it's not after this evidence has been presented. In fact, I don't think it's going to be presented for several days out. However.
Well, let me get to the point. The pretrial order specifically provided that all motions dealing with non-scientific evidence that required no testimony, and these motions shouldn't require testimony because the videos speak for themselves, should be heard no later than December 31st, 2010. There are numerous cases that stands for the proposition, if you fail to file a motion to suppress in a timely manner, then you have waived that objection unless there's something you did not know at that particular time. So, as always, you can interpose an objection, but we're not going to necessarily wear the carpet out going back and forth for prolonged objections. You can make your short objection relevancy if you feel it's not relevant or some other thing, but the problem with you doing it at this date is simply there's no time to redact the portions that you're talking about. That's why we have deadlines. And y'all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excluding Ms. Fernell, 5 lawyers sitting over there that have had ample time since December. But we'll take a brief look at it, but you may have waived any objections that you've had, save for making the objection now, but it may not be timely. But let's move on. Who's the state's next witness?
Adriana Acevedo.
Okay, let's return to jury. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you employed, ma'am?
I'm employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with Orange County?
A little over 5 years.
Back in July of 2008, what was your role with the Orange County Sheriff's Office? What were your assignments?
I was assigned to Sector 2 Road Patrol on the afternoon shift.
Okay. Would Sector 2 in Orange County include addresses on Hope Spring Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As a result of your assignment to the Patrol Division in Sector 2, did you respond to a call at 4937 Hope Spring Drive on July 15th of 2008?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you arrive after Corporal Rendon Fletcher?
Yes.
Does the Orange County Sheriff's Office keep a record of the dispatch times of officers?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review that record?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do the records of the Orange County Sheriff, or does your memory allow you to tell us when you arrived at that residence?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
I arrived at 9:52
AM or PM?
p.m.
Okay. When you arrived, was Corporal Fletcher already in the house?
Yes.
Okay. What action did you take?
I walked towards the front door where Rendon Fletcher was inside the residence. I met with him at the door and asked him for specifics as what was going on inside the residence.
Okay. Once you got a briefing from Corporal Fletcher, did you seek to take written statements from individuals inside the home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you take written statements, or did you provide statement forms to George Anthony, Cindy Anthony, Lee Anthony, and ultimately Casey Anthony?
Yes, I went to my vehicle and I got blank copies of the statement forms and I brought them inside the residence with me.
All right. After your arrival, did Sergeant Reginald Hosey arrive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was Sergeant Hosey directing your activities that evening?
Yes.
Okay. Did Sergeant Hosey direct you to escort Casey Anthony to any particular location?
Yes.
Okay. What time did you begin that escort?
The escort began after 2350 hours, which would be 11:53. 11:50.
Okay. Now, Miss Anthony got into your vehicle.
Yes.
What type of vehicle was this?
A marked patrol car
Okay, and where did she sit in that vehicle?
in the rear of the marked patrol car.
All right. Was she under arrest?
No, ma'am.
Was she handcuffed?
No, ma'am.
Did you take some step to ensure that she was going with you voluntarily?
Yes.
What was that?
I asked her if she was willing to go with me in my vehicle, and she advised yes.
Okay. Was it your understanding that you were taking her to the last location where she saw her child?
Yes.
Anyone that you're transporting in your vehicle who is not under arrest, do you take further steps once they are in your vehicle to ensure that they are continuing to be there voluntarily?
Yes.
What steps did you take with Ms. Anthony to ensure that was the case?
To keep verbal communication with her, to ask her if she was fine, how was she doing inside the vehicle, and communication with her, and to let her know that if at any time she didn't want to be in the vehicle, to please advise me of that.
All right. And at any point in time when you're on your way to this location, does she tell you she wants to go back to her residence, she wants to get out of the vehicle, anything of that nature, which would indicate that she was not there voluntarily?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Where did you go?
To the Sawgrass Apartments.
What is the address of the Sawgrass Apartments?
I know that they're on Conway. As far as for the exact numerical, I have to refer to my report.
Your Honor, may the witness refer to her report to refresh her recollection for the numerical.
She may.
The exact numerical address is 2863 South Conway Road.
How long did it take for you to get from 4937 Hope Spring Drive to 2863 South Conway Road?
Only a few minutes.
Can you tell from the reports of the Orange County Sheriff's Office, or do you recall from your memory what time you would have arrived at the Sawgrass Apartments?
The exact time is notated in the call log, and I'd have to look at that call log.
All right, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as MW, a composite exhibit for identification. Have you take a look at that call log and tell us if that refreshes your recollection as to your arrival time at the Sawgrass Apartments?
The time of arrival is 5 after the hour, 5 after midnight.
All right. What did you do when you were at the Sawgrass Apartments?
I arrived at the apartments. She advised which apartment exactly it was, and then we returned to the residence.
All right. When you're referring to she, are you speaking of Caylee Anthony?
Yes, Caylee Anthony.
Did she direct you to a specific location?
She pointed to an apartment and directed us to that building.
All right. When you say us, are you speaking of you and Corporal Rendon Fletcher?
Yes, ma'am.
When you were being directed to this particular location, who was telling you where to drive?
Caylee Anthony?
Okay. Did she tell you where to stop?
Yes.
You said she pointed to an apartment. Do you have that apartment number listed in your report, or do you recall from your memory what apartment number she directed you to?
It's listed in the report, and it's apartment number 210.
Did she make any statement as to what happened at apartment number 210?
I don't recall her making any statements.
Okay. Did you ask her if she was certain that that was the location where she had last seen her daughter?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what did she tell you?
That she was certain that that was the apartment.
You said that you left there and went to another location?
We returned to her residence.
Okay. And do you recall, or do the records of the Orange County Sheriff reflect when you would have returned to Hope Spring Drive?
Yes. The records show that the return time is 25 after the hour, 25 after midnight.
And at that point, what happened to Miss Anthony?
I let her out of the vehicle, and she returned to the residence.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have of the deputy, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Please, the court. Good afternoon, Ms. Acevedo.
Good afternoon.
When you arrived, the Mrs. Anthony, what was her demeanor like?
She was upset.
And Mr. George Anthony, what was his demeanor like?
It was calm, quiet.
Okay. And what about Caylee Anthony's demeanor? What was she like?
She was fairly quiet.
Just like Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Now, was Miss Anthony handcuffed that evening?
Not that I observed.
And she was placed in the back cage of your police car?
Yes, sir.
And that's when you drove off and went to the Sawgrass Apartments?
Yes.
And how long were you in the house before you went to Sawgrass?
Almost about 2 hours.
Okay. In that 2 hours, did you see the garage open?
Yes.
Did you see the Pontiac Sunfire in the garage?
Yes, sir.
And did you see the trunk open of the Pontiac Sunfire?
I don't remember the trunk to be open.
Okay. Did you smell any foul odor coming from that car?
I smelled an odor. I don't know if it was coming from the car or the garage.
Okay. And did you smell anything that you would consider to be human decomposition?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's not established that she has sufficient knowledge to give a lay opinion.
Sustain, establish a foundation.
What can you describe the odor that you smelled?
It to be a garbage type odor. That's the best I could describe it as.
Okay. And you at no time was alarmed in any way to think that CSI needed to be called?
That wouldn't be my decision to make.
You never advised anyone that CSI should be called?
No, sir.
If I can check just a moment, Judge, I think I have no further questions. I have nothing further. Thank you, Deputy Acevedo.
Any redirect of the deputy?
Ms. Acevedo, excuse me, Deputy Acevedo, you said that you didn't notice if the car trunk was open
Yes,
at all
ma'am.
that evening. Do you have any idea how close you got to the car?
I passed the vehicle because I entered the residence at some point of the evening through the garage door, but as far as how close, I'm not sure, but I did pass the vehicle.
Okay. Now, you described the smell as a garbage type smell. Is that because you have no experience with human decomposition odor?
And Judge Leading.
Overruled.
Not a lot of experience.
Okay. Would you feel comfortable giving an opinion either way based on the amount of experience you have?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay.
I know you said you came in you passed the car. Was that during the 2 hours that you were there before you went off with Miss Anthony?
Yes, before.
And when you came back, how much time did you spend at the house?
I was at that house for over an hour, but for the exact time, I'd have to check.
Okay. So roughly 3 hours in total time.
Yes, sir.
And how many other police officers that evening came and went, as far as you saw?
4.
4. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
May the witness be excused.
She may. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Back in 2008, how were you employed?
I was employed with Aimco as a property manager at Sawgrass Apartments,
Okay. And where are the Sawgrass Apartments located?
Orlando, Florida.
Street address.
Oh, I don't remember the exact address, but it's on Conway Road.
Okay. As the manager of that apartment complex or that apartment community, would you have knowledge of the condition of the apartments, whether they were rented or vacant?
Yes, I do.
Back on July 16th of 2008, do you recall researching the occupancy status of apartment number 210?
I do.
Can you tell the jury whether or not apartment number 210 was occupied on July 16th of 2008? 2008.
On that date, the apartment was vacant.
Okay. How long had it been vacant?
It had been vacant since February 25th of 2008.
Did you determine whether or not an individual by the name of Zenaida Gonzalez or Zenaida Fernandez-Gonzalez had been the last occupant of that apartment?
I researched the prior occupants of that apartment, and it was not Zenaida Gonzalez who occupied it.
Okay. Did you research whether or not a Zenaida Gonzalez occupied any of the apartments at the Sawgrass community?
I did research that, and she did not occupy any apartments there at any time.
Is apartment 210 on the second floor, first floor?
Apartment 210 is on a second floor.
Okay. Does it have an exterior door?
It does. It has a front door that faces the stairway, and it has a sliding glass door that opens to the patio.
Is that stairway shared with another apartment at all?
It is. It is shared with the downstairs apartment, which is apartment 110.
Okay. And did apartment 110 serve any specific purpose at the Sawgrass Apartments?
It did. That apartment was reserved as our leasing model.
Were you shown a photograph of somebody who was identified to you as Caylee Anthony?
I believe I was, yes, ma'am.
Did you recognize that individual as somebody who you had seen at any point in time in 2008 on the property of the Sawgrass Apartments?
I did not recognize her, no, ma'am.
Were you shown a photograph of an individual who was reported to be Caylee Marie Anthony?
I was shown that picture, yes, ma'am.
Did you recognize Caylee Marie Anthony as somebody who you had seen at any point in time in 2008 on the property of Sawgrass Apartments?
No, I did not recognize her.
That's all the questions I have of the witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination? May the witness be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Back in July of 2008, what was your occupation?
I was working working with the Orange County Sheriff's Office as a sergeant
Okay.
in road patrol.
How long have you been with the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
13 years.
As a road patrol sergeant, what's your responsibility with the agency?
To oversee a patrol squad, also reading, reviewing reports, also operational control of scenes, giving guidance and direction to subordinates.
Are you an individual who would be considered one of the first responders to, say, a 911 call?
No, I'm not. No, I wouldn't be.
Are these deputies that work for you the individuals who would be the first responders?
Yes.
Back on July 15th of 2008, would Corporal Rendon Fletcher have been an individual who worked for you?
Yes.
At some point in time in the evening of July 15th of 2008, did you receive information from the deputies who worked for you that necessitated your responding to an address on Hope Spring Drive?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall, or do the records of the Orange County Sheriff reflect the time that you would have arrived at that scene?
Yes, the records do reflect that.
Okay. Would you need to see the record to give an exact response?
To the exact time, yes.
Right. Your Honor, at this point, wish to approach the witness with MW, a composite.
You may.
Take a look at that and tell me if that refreshes your recollection as to your arrival at the Hope Spring address.
It says I arrived at 22:24 hours, which would be 10 p.m., 10:14 or 10:24 p.m.
Would that have been the only location within that sector that you had supervisory responsibility over that evening?
No, it wouldn't have been.
Okay. How many different calls would you be the individual who was supervising deputies responding to those calls?
Many calls. I believe at that time, my squad consisted, along with the corporal, 13 people, 13 deputies.
So at any given point in time, you could be supervising the activities of related to 13 different calls.
Correct.
When you responded to the Hope Spring Drive address, did you direct any of the deputies there to undertake any particular action?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
Well, once I received my debriefing from Corporal Fletcher at the time, there were several activities that I told them to do as far as making sure we had everything secured, making sure, actually directing them to go make contact at several different locations.
All right. Was one of those locations the Sawgrass Apartments?
Yes, it was.
Did you also direct deputies to the apartment complex of an individual by the name of Anthony Lazaro?
Yes, I did.
Did you direct one of your deputies to collect any particular items from Anthony Lazaro?
I don't remember directly saying collect something, but I do believe they did.
Okay. At some point in time, did one of your deputies return with a cell phone?
I believe Deputy, you want the name?
If you recall it.
I believe Deputy Ryan Williams did.
Did you direct the deputies to take written statements from the parties at the residence?
Yes, I did.
Would that have included the written statement of Caylee Anthony?
Yes, it would have.
After Ms. Anthony's written statement was obtained, did you have an opportunity to have a conversation with her?
Yes, I did.
How did that take place?
Well, I actually walked and talked with her briefly. One of the things that I wanted to do at that time, because the child issue was into play, is that reassure her that I wasn't there to take her child, or the deputies weren't there to take her child from her. We just wanted to know the location just to make sure she was okay.
Was this conversation that you had with her after information was gathered by your agency that the child was kidnapped?
Not that the child was kidnapped, but I believe just missing, or we didn't know the whereabouts.
All right. Was the conversation after Ms. Anthony had returned from the Sawgrass Apartments with Deputy Acevedo?
Yes, it was.
You're aware that they returned from the Sawgrass apartment without the child?
Correct.
Did you receive any information from Ms. Anthony as to where the child could be other than the Sawgrass Apartments?
Yes, I did. She mentioned that she was with a nanny, Zenaida. during our conversation.
All right. When you spoke with Ms. Anthony, did you ask her if she would agree to accompany you on a short walk away from the house?
Yes, I did.
Why was it that you wanted to get away from the house?
Because of everything that was going on, we had multiple deputies on the scene, of course, the other family members that were there. So I just kind of walked away as the supervisor there, the ultimate authority figure at that time. I just wanted to walk her away and just, once again, like I said, reassure her, because previous conversations included the fact that she and her mother, they weren't getting along, or her parents weren't getting along, that her mother just wanted to keep the baby or get the baby from her. So I just want to once again reassure her that, we didn't have any court orders. We didn't have anything saying that we needed to take the baby from her. So I just wanted to make sure that the child was okay.
All right. Did Miss Anthony indicate to you in any way that this was just a domestic dispute between her and her mother as opposed to a kidnapping?
During the time we were there, she was constantly talking about that she and her mother were not getting along, and it was more so that she wanted to keep her mom from getting the child from her.
Okay. At that time, did you all have any further success in attempting to locate the child?
No, we didn't.
Okay. As a result of that, did you follow Orange County Sheriff's Office procedure and contact a detective?
Yes, I did.
And who did you contact?
Corporal Yuri Melich.
At that juncture, would it have been the responsibility of those individuals in the detective unit or bureau to follow up on the information that the patrol officers had received that evening?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions of the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're out of uniform.
Yes, I am.
You still work for sheriff?
I do.
You're a detective now?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Why are you out of uniform?
I want to wear a suit today. Look nice.
For court.
Yes.
Good guy. Now, you are still a sector commander or whatever you call it?
No, I'm not. I'm actually, since we last spoken, I've been promoted to lieutenant, which right now I'm currently assigned to the Uniform Patrol Division as a watch commander.
Am I correct that the county is divided up in grids or sectors with all kinds of different responsibilities? 6
sectors, correct.
Got sheriff on top and then a bunch of
Correct.
other brass and then get down to you guys.
Correct.
And is the reason for that so you become familiar with the area that you're assigned to?
Currently?
Well, when you were in charge of this sector that we've just been talking about.
Well, I was only in charge of a squad, not the particular sector itself, but had responsibilities. My deputies had responsibilities throughout the sector.
So when somebody told you an address of Hope Springs Drive, you had some idea where Hope Springs Drive was?
Back then, I don't recall if I actually knew the actual location.
And back then, you had never heard of the Anthony family, isn't that correct, sir?
Before we received the call?
Right.
No, I didn't.
Never knew or heard anything about Casey Anthony?
No, I didn't.
George or Cindy Anthony?
No, I didn't.
Brother Lee Anthony?
No, I didn't.
They weren't on your radar screen.
No, they weren't.
So when you arrived, how many deputies were already there, sir?
I believe just Corporal Fletcher and Deputy Acevedo.
And were they all in uniform?
Yes, they were.
And the uniform includes the full utility belt, guns, tasers, whatever?
Correct.
And they were in marked patrol cars?
Yes, they were.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
So when you arrived then at that house on Hope Springs, there's 3 marked patrol cars?
Correct.
Do you know how long the other deputies had been at that site before you arrived, sir?
I want to say somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40 minutes prior to my arrival.
Did you hear the first call that resulted in the dispatch of Brandon Fletcher and or Adriana Acevedo?
Correct. I do remember it.
Was the call for a suspected stolen car?
Correct.
And did you understand shortly thereafter that that was bogus?
I really didn't follow too much after that. After I heard the initial call go out, I really didn't hear anything else because, like, once again, I had other deputies going other places, other calls going out.
Was Caylee Anthony handcuffed on that evening?
I don't recall.
Do you recall telling Deputy Eberlin to uncuff her because she needed to talk to Detective Melich?
No, I didn't. I don't.
You recall telling him, that is Mr. Eberlin, or any other deputy, to take the handcuffs off of Caylee, period, for whatever purpose?
No, I don't.
And since the time, sir, that we took your deposition back in November of last year, have you not had occasion to discuss that very subject with members of the state attorney's office?
Yes.
Were you advised, in fact, that she had been handcuffed?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to hearsay. In fact, it's not in evidence.
Overruled, he can answer the question, yes or no.
Repeat the question, please.
Would you read the question back exactly as stated, please, ma'am?
Were you advised of the fact she had been handcuffed?
Yes.
But it was not in your presence.
I
Is
don't
that the bottom
remember.
line?
I don't remember being handcuffed.
Okay. You directed the drive to Sawgrass Apartments, did you?
Correct.
And were you present when she, that is, Caylee Anthony, departed in the back of Adriana Acevedo's marked patrol car?
I was on property, yes.
And she was put in the back, what you all refer to as the cage.
Deputy Acevedo had a cage in the car, yes.
And the cage is where Caylee was put.
I believe she was riding in the rear of the vehicle, yes.
Now you, sir, when you approached the property at Whole Spring Drive, first time, right? Mm-hmm. First time you ever been there?
Yes.
Was the garage open or closed?
The garage was open.
Was the trunk open or closed?
Open.
And did you go up to the car?
Yes, I did.
And did you smell some form of a foul odor?
Yes, I did.
And having done so, did you report that to crime scene investigators, CSI?
No, because I don't believe I talked to our forensic unit that night.
And not only did you not report to CSI, sir, you did not conduct any inspection in that trunk, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't write any reports in this case either, did you?
No, I didn't.
When you decided to separate Caylee from the rest of the people, you wanted so you'd be alone to talk with her, was that the deal?
Yes.
You were in full uniform,
Correct.
just like everybody else.
Correct.
And she went with you. You say about 40 paces or so,
40 yards.
40
Yes.
yards, and you talked with her.
Yes.
Did you or any of these officers in your presence at any time on that evening, to your knowledge, advise her of her Miranda warning rights?
I'm not aware of anyone doing that.
Did she have any method or manner, sir, of being able to get out of the cage of Acevito's patrol car?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to relevance.
Yes, she could have asked Deputy Acevedo that to stop the vehicle, or that she didn't want to go or to exit the vehicle.
Good spot. Other than asking, could she have opened the door herself?
No, those vehicles, you're not allowed to do that.
Can't physically do it, the bottom line.
Correct. From the inside.
Were you present when Miss Anthony was returned from the field trip to Sawgrass Apartments?
Yes, I was.
And did she just say, "See ya, have a good night, I'm going out"?
Who are you talking about?
Casey.
No, she didn't say
But
that.
she was led into her house, wasn't she?
I believe she was led into her house.
By one of your full uniformed armed deputies on the scene.
Correct.
And she was taken inside that house, and she was kept there until Deputy or Detective Yuri Milich arrived. Is that correct?
I believe she was talking with several deputies, yes.
Several deputies in there. How many more were there now? I thought there were just the three of you. More?
Well, the deputies that were originally on scene.
Okay, and were there any more that came?
I don't recall any more coming to the scene.
So while the period of time of getting out of the cage, being led into the house, she was in there with at least three deputies waiting for Detective Yuri Milich. Is that correct?
Could have been, all the deputies could have been in the house at one time, yes.
And do you remember how long it was before Deputy Milich showed up?
From my call,
Yes, sir.
I believe, I can't say for sure. I know it was, I want to say it was a couple hours, hour and a half, 2 hours.
So for all that period of time, whether it's an hour and a half to 2 hours or whatever, Casey is in the home, family home, with at least three deputies waiting for Detective Milich.
Not necessarily, because the deputies were, they weren't there inside the house all at the same time for every minute that we were waiting on Detective Milich, because they were going back and forth to their cars, getting things out, getting statements.
Some walking around in the house.
Probably out at that time, I was back and forth between phone calls, looking at my computer, checking on other things that were going on.
But all at the address of Hope Spring Drive.
Correct.
None of you left.
Correct.
Nobody else left either, did they?
Not that I can recall.
And you weren't going to let anybody leave either, were you?
I can't say that I wouldn't have.
Now, sir, were you present thereafter when Detective Milich came and interviewed Casey?
I don't know how long I stayed after Detective Milich arrived.
Did he kind of take over the scene? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much once we call the detective, we start letting them do their investigation. Road Patrol's preliminary investigation is pretty much concluded when they start taking over.
So therefore then, you are not in the chain of custody of any evidence in this case, are you, sir?
No, I'm not.
And other than whatever Casey said to you when you did your walk, you were not involved in any of the statements given by anybody in the case, are you?
Correct.
Only time you ever had anything else to do with the case was to go back when all of these demonstrators who had nothing better in life to do to come and protest at the house. You had something to do with that, right?
Object to the relevance.
When you left the scene that night, sir, were you done other than having to come through the deposition process and trial?
Correct.
You had nothing else to do with the case at all?
No, I didn't.
Just a moment, Your Honor, thank you.
Lieutenant Hosey, on July 15th of 2008, were you advised by Caylee Anthony that her child was alive?
Yes.
Were you advised by Caylee Anthony that she believed her child to be well?
Yes.
Were you advised by Caylee Anthony that the child was with a babysitter that she could not contact at that moment?
Correct.
Were you advised by Caylee Anthony that she didn't want her mother to have contact with her child that evening?
Yes.
When you are making assignments to the deputies at that scene, is it important that they gather information by talking to people
Yes.
who are there
Yes.
and taking statements from people who are there?
Yes.
The individuals in the house with these armed deputies would include George Anthony, correct?
Correct.
Cindy Anthony,
Correct.
and Lee Anthony. Do you remember Lee Anthony being there?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do you remember Lee Anthony leaving and returning?
I don't remember him leaving and returning.
Did you make any effort to stop Lee Anthony if he left, if he wanted to leave?
No.
Did you make any effort to stop George or Cindy Anthony or Caylee Anthony if they wanted to leave?
No.
Did any of those individuals, including Caylee Anthony, tell you that they wanted to leave or go anywhere else that evening?
No, they didn't.
Did they all appear to be cooperating with your deputies in an effort to locate Caylee Marie Anthony?
Yes, they were.
When Miss Anthony went in Deputy Acevedo's patrol car, would you have instructed Deputy Acevedo to maintain communication with Miss Anthony to ensure that she was going freely and voluntarily? To what he would have done.
Could you repeat the question?
Do you know if you would have given instruction to Deputy Acevedo to ensure that Caylee Anthony was going with her freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
When you said you were there when Miss Anthony returned,
Yes, I was.
okay, was she free to walk about the house under her own power?
Yes, she was.
Did you or did any of the other deputies in your presence tell her she couldn't leave or that she couldn't go anywhere?
I didn't tell her, and I'm not aware of any of the deputies telling her that she couldn't go anywhere.
Okay. When you sought to speak with her briefly away from her family, did she tell you she didn't want to go with you?
No, she didn't.
Was she being cooperative?
Yes.
Was she speaking to you freely as best you could tell?
Yes.
Did you have her in handcuffs at that point?
No, I didn't.
That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Greenberg just asked you about these other people here. Was George Anthony all upset or was he calm?
At what time?
Anytime while you were there?
Overall, he was calm, but he voiced the same concerns as Cindy Anthony in reference to Casey's behavior.
But his demeanor and his actions were a calm person.
Yes, he was pretty calm.
And in that process, did he advise you he was an ex-cop?
Yes, he did.
And Cindy Anthony, she wasn't calm at all, was she?
She wasn't what?
Calm.
She was upset, tearful, angry. She showed a lot of different emotions that night, but she was also calm at certain points.
Upset, tearful, angry, and some calm.
And calm.
The one, Casey, when you walked and talked with her, she had a flat effect the whole time, didn't she?
Correct.
You know what that means, don't you?
A flat affect?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.